November is just around the corner, and that means the 16th Annual National Podcast Post Month is fast approaching. Hi, I'm Jennifer Navarrete, founder of NaPodPomo, and I'm inviting you to join the 30-day Global Podcasting Challenge. Whether you're a newbie looking to start your first podcast or a seasoned pro seeking inspiration, NaPodPomo is the perfect place to experiment and try new things. Visit napodpomo.org to learn more. See where podcasting can take you this November during National Podcast Post Month.
You know what? Screw it. This is different. He decides he's going to take her out on a hike on Grandfather Mountain. Grandfather Mountain's a little north of Brown Mountain, and the name always brings the thought of family to me because Grandfather Mountain, it's a beautiful place. But while he's up there, he's thinking about proposing to her, and he's also got that idea like, I abandoned my family and I want to start a family. That's going through his head. And while he's trying to work this out and try to figure out a way to propose to her, he finds something shining in a dark place. So he literally is trying to go up to the summit of a mountain and propose, and he's veered off trail to a dark place. Kind of a allegorical element. It's not, the whole story's not an allegory, but there's allegorical elements. So he goes into a dark place and then he falls into hell that way. And there's a lot of learning he needs to do on how to get out of that situation, how to bring himself out of hell.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have yet another amazing author on the podcast. And what's exciting for me is my guest has actually listened to the show, which makes me so happy. We're going to be talking about his journey as an author. So 2 books out there in the world that are going to take you on a journey. And it's going to be exciting to talk about this. Bryan Mitchell's on the podcast. Bryan, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
It's exciting. Okay, Bryan, so for those listening at home and wherever they are, tell us where you are in this great big world of ours.
I am in a little town called Archdale. It's in North Carolina, that's southeast United States.
Beautiful. Excellent. And you are an author, which is why you're here. Can you tell us a little bit of the origin of your author journey? How did all this start for you? You woke up one day and went, I've got a few minutes here in my day. I'm going to become an author. I'm going to do it. Is that how it worked?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, exactly.
It started in high school, actually. My English teacher said, okay, I want you guys to go home and write your own myth, your own Greek myth, and bring it back. And I said, oh, yeah, I can do this so good, because I had an idea that popped up in my head, and I was like, this is the easiest homework ever. And I finished it in 6th period, which is English was 5th period. So I finished it while I was supposed to be doing other work. And I took it and kept it at home and just looked at it and admired it. And I actually turned it in like 3 days late. And she's like, look, you're losing 10 points a day on this assignment. I was like, oh, yeah, but you're going to love the story when I get it to you. And she did. When I finally got it, she's like, this was great, but you lost 20 points because you turned it in so late. And I was like, yeah, I know, but as long as you loved it, that's all I care about. So over the years, I always thought about writing a novel, thought about it for a very long time. I just thought that one day I would just do it, but it didn't really work out that way. I was getting a lot of material by living my life. I had all kinds of different jobs, from priming tobacco, working convenience stores, delivering pizzas, going to different houses, getting all this setting, everything, just getting so much material, joining the military and being in the military for so many years. I had so much stuff to work with, but I was procrastinating. I just knew I was going to start writing books one day and it was going to be great. And then when I finally started writing, I really didn't know what I was doing. Even though I was an English major and I knew how to write proper sentences, the art of writing wasn't quite there. I started reading craft books and got a little bit closer to getting there. But what I really needed was some professional help. I think it started with me going to a community of writers here in my local area. And everywhere you go in the world, there's got to be a community of writers near you. So if that's what you're trying to do, if that's your next step, trying to get your writing to the next level, you definitely want to hook up with a community of writers who are already there, because you can learn so much from other writers. So one day, one of these community writer friends of mine who I just met gifted me an opportunity to sit down with some real masters of the craft. And that was with Stephen James and Robert Dugani. And they were going to read my work and critique it and give me real feedback on how to better my craft. And that was a very generous gift that writer friend of mine had gifted me. And that really opened my eyes to everything that I was doing wrong and the things I was doing right. And so combining that, I was able to make this book that I was creating into something really special, more in the line of what I wanted to do. And I've been carrying that with me since. But the actual book I was trying to write was a book that takes place in hell. And for the first few years while I was thinking about it, I was like, I was going to create it kind of close to Dante's world, but not really explicitly say it's all the circles. I was just going to make it its own dark fantasy and just kind of have it based on Dante's world. But one day I woke up and said, you know what? This should be more in line with the nine circles, Dante's actual work. So I decided to get to work. I did a lot more research because I didn't want to upset the Italians, because that's the Italians' master work there. And everyone knows Dante. You say the name Dante, they know that you're talking about the Divine Comedy. It was called just a comedy in the beginning, but over time it became the Divine Comedy. That's just how venerated this work is. So I didn't want to hurt an Italian out there. I mean, goodness.
No.
I made sure that I paid good respect to Dante's work and even had Italians review it. And the Italians who did review it really enjoyed it. They said I paid good, proper respect to Dante's work. One thing that I did differently is Dante had a guide, the Pilgrim. Dante the Pilgrim had a guide to take him through the 9 circles of hell. And he was able to tell him about each of the circles of hell and point him to different people. And Dante recognized people from his life that were there. And in this imagining that I was doing, my character, Daniel, I felt like he may not know as many people. He might know a couple of people, but not as many people. But I also thought maybe he doesn't have such a trustworthy guide as Virgil to get him around. He runs into this being that is known as Heartless Charles. And Heartless Charles wants to use him and take him deeper so he can show the master of hell, Satan, that he deserves more power. He deserves more power because he doesn't like his job. His job is to take souls who just fall into hell to be judged to which circle they need to go to. And he just he's kind of fed up with all the whining and all the begging, and he wants to do something different. So he sees Daniel as his meal ticket off the job to get a better position, basically. And the reason why Daniel is so different is that he falls into hell and he's still alive. There's a light about him where no one else has that light. And I come up with that because while we're alive, we're actually bioluminescent. Even though we can't see ourselves shining, I can't see you shining, or you can't just go and look outside and see someone shining. But we are bioluminescent just a little bit. And that's a scientific fact that I find fascinating. So I thought, all these years in hell, Heartless Charles will see something different with Daniel than everybody else who's fallen, because they've died yet he's alive. So he's thinking, I can take this living man all the way to the very bottom of hell and show everybody that I can do this. But what he doesn't realize is that Daniel's humanity will appeal to him in this dark place. And the thought with that for me is, sometimes we find ourselves in these really bad situations, these horrible situations where we don't want to be a part of. And sometimes we're just ready to back out slowly and sprint away from whatever it is. Maybe it's gunfire. Some people will run to the gunfire while everybody else is very wise to run away from the gunfire. But when we're in a bad situation, how we handle ourselves can really help other people. You think of the 9 circles of hell, someone who's dealing with lust. Maybe someone's tempted. Maybe they've been married for, I don't know, maybe 20 years and have never thought about it. And they're really on the cusp of making a mistake on a particular day. And maybe you're the friend that's right there and gives them the bit of wisdom that they need to overcome that temptation. And the same thing with drinking. Maybe you've put down the drink for a number of years and you're having just one of those days and it just seems like everything's adding up, and you're looking at that ABC store, you're looking at the beer aisle for the first time in a long time, and you're thinking, you know what? Why not? I've done so well. Maybe this is the time that I should bend and give myself a bit of a break. But, maybe you could be the person who says, you know what? You've done so well. There's been so many days you've been able to resist that and had good days. You can overcome this bad day and not fall back down into that hole of temptation. Of course, plenty of us, can kind of do a little bit of gray area in there. Like, maybe I can have a drink here and there. And that's not for everybody, but still part of the idea was just when we're in a dark place, we don't have to accept the environment that we're in as being a part of us. The environment doesn't make who we are, but we can really light up the world around us if we're willing to adhere to who we are.
It's amazing. I like it. And I love the idea that there's a part of us that glows. I'm like, I've never heard about that before. That's quite intriguing. Can you explain it just a little bit more? Because for me, I want to use this as an illustration, piggybacking off our conversation. Can you explain a little bit more about the science behind that at all?
Well, it is fascinating. It's hard to explain. I'm not exactly sure what led me down the rabbit hole of finding that information. I was looking up bioluminescent creatures because one day I was out in the forest. I'm a country boy, and even though right now at the moment I'm kind of in the suburbs, but I used to live in a place where my house was among many other little tiny houses, and surrounding these little tiny houses was great big forest. And I would oftentimes find myself in this forest. And I knew this forest so well, I would go out there at night. And one night I was out there and it was really dark, but I saw something shining on the ground, something green shining on the ground. And my first thought was, I shouldn't touch that, radioactive, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all that stuff. But I got curious and I just reached down and tried to touch it. And it was just the ground. And I was like, whoa, why is the ground shining right here in this one spot? And I was kind of messing and digging. Eventually it just kind of disappeared. And I'm like, that is so weird. And over time, I started looking up bioluminescence, and here in North Carolina, there's a particular mountain where there's what they call it the brown mountain lights, the mysterious brown mountain lights. But on this mountain in North Carolina, in Appalachian Mountains, there's this mountain where, for inexplicable reasons, lights just appear. A lot of times, mostly after it rains, lights will show up and fade out. And there's no campers out there. There's no civilization out there. It's just forest. And everyone knows that as a as a truth that for some reason these weird lights pop up, and it's been studied by scientists, and no one can really come up with a really good scientific explanation as to why that's happening. Even to this day, I mean, it's people research it every year. So these thoughts have always kind of been at the back of my head. There's so many mysteries. And so looking at bioluminescence, also on the coast of North Carolina, there's a bioluminescence that's happening in the Outer Banks in the seas early in the morning. It's everywhere. And I've heard about it, certain sea creatures that do it. And then one day while I was just typing away at my computer, I came along. Did you know that humans are bioluminescent? Like, no, this can't be real. But I looked at the source. It was a scientific source. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a legitimate scientific source that I've seen over time. I was always interested in science. I'm computer science major and just love science. There's so many weird, cool things that you can discover just by, picking up a good magazine on science or just walking down the science aisle in a local bookstore or something. But when I was seeing this, I got to reading it and like, well, this is crazy. So I started looking at many articles about it, and the several sources just talked about how we're slightly bioluminescent, and we shine most often in the early afternoon when the sun's out. I guess another thing I could say is that I had one of my nicknames when I was a kid was Casper because I was very pale, and I kind of joking like, yeah, I'm shining, but it's kind of neat that, no matter who you are, what skin color you are, we all literally shine. Now, the exact science into how that happens, I don't know. It's just something about the skin, something going on in the skin that's doing it. That's something I would have to look up now to see exactly what's going on there. But it's just a slight amount. That's part of the reason why we can see other people in, in infrared and stuff like that. Of course, there's the heat signature, but part of the reason why we have a heat signature somewhere within all that heat is where the light's coming from.
I love that. I like how you brought that into your writings as well, in that your character stands out in a dark place. Your character's different than everyone else that's there, and there's something unique about them just in who they are. So I love how all of this ties back to, touching the ground and trying to figure this out when you're younger, and now it's part of your story in your book. That's the one thing I find very interesting from a reader's perspective, is how character development happens. And it seems like you're pulling from so many different memories and resources of your past, and all the things you've lived feeds its way into your character development. That all makes sense now as we kind of unpack that, and not knowing the stories behind this, I think maybe we wouldn't naturally just grasp it right away. We have to learn it as a reader. But I love how you kind of go back in time and you kind of deconstruct your character in front of us like that. That's quite unique. I like that.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually thought about it too. And I psychoanalyzed Daniel so many times. And that's one of the things that's kind of unique about him, is that he has a lot of hope. And Dante's work is about abandon hope, all ye who enter. But that's not what we would want each other to do. If anyone's in a bad situation, the last thing I want them to do is just give up and just succumb to the environment. And Daniel, he's kind of like he has a like, I can get out of this situation kind of attitude. It's never a no-win situation for him. But he had to fall into hell for a reason. He's not perfect by any means. He has he has a past where he has regrets, and we all have regrets. his regret is that he ran away from home after getting into an altercation with his father. His father struggled with drinking, and he stopped when his son was born, and he started doing a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous. And something that I used to study psychology. That was my first major before I decided I should get one that's a little bit more usable in the real world. Even though I do find it fascinating, we learn a lot about us reading into it. One of the issues with alcoholism is it tends to sometimes skip a generation because one child who experienced severe alcoholism from his parents will not drink and then push their young never to drink to a point where they'll start drinking. So there's like a alcoholism sometimes skips a generation. It, not by any means meaning that's always the situation, but it's something that's been observed. So I was considering that with Daniel and his father being so extreme, having been there and walked away from it, pushing his son continuously not to drink. And when his son comes home drunk, his mental capacities are not where they need to be. He's struggling with decision making because alcohol can inhibit the best decisions. I think we've all can agree with that. But when he gets into it with his father and walks out, like the next day, he's regretting it. He knows he was wrong and he wants to go back, but at the same time, he's feeling too ashamed to. So he just keeps on going. He joins the military, hoping that he would find some pride in himself that way. And even though he does, there's still that missing piece where he didn't with what he did with his parents. And then there's with that not fulfilling it, he wants to fulfill it through academia. So he leaves the military and goes into school, and he meets the girl who he loves, and he wants to marry this girl. But how can he marry this girl how can he start a family with this girl when he broke his own family by walking out all those years ago and refusing to go back? So he's like, you know what? Screw it. This is different. He decides he's going to take her out on a hike on Grandfather Mountain. Grandfather Mountain is a little north of Brown Mountain, and the name always brings the thought of family to me because Grandfather Mountain, it's a beautiful place. Mm-hmm. But while he's up there, he's thinking about proposing to her, and he's also got that idea to like, I abandoned my family and I want to start a family. That's going through his head. And while he's trying to work this out and try to figure out a way to propose to her, he finds something shining in a dark place. So he literally is trying to go up to the summit of a mountain and propose, and he's veered off trail to a dark place. Kind of a allegorical element. It's not, the whole story's not an allegory, but there's allegorical elements. So he goes into a dark place and then he falls into hell that way. And there's a lot of learning he needs to do on how to get out of that situation, how to bring himself out of hell.
Okay, so as you're talking, I'm hearing elements of what we've already discussed that you've lived. You know, Daniel leaves the path. He goes to chase after something that caught his eye. You, when you were younger, saw something that you chased after and you went there. I'm hearing some parallels between your main character and a little of your story. How much of you is baked into the story that you've written?
A little bit of everything. I had a great relationship with my dad. We've always been close. But other characters that come in the story, such as Heartless Charles, he says a lot of the things that I think and never say. It's like an unfiltered, really bad guy, always saying the worst things and thinking way highly of himself, much higher and supreme than everybody else around him. Of course, I don't look at that to other people, but it's kind of fun to take away all the layers of me and dive in and find this character who's in my head somewhere and find his attitude and know exactly how he's thinking. And it's just there. The part of Heartless Charles that really resonates to me and I think other readers will relate to him, is that he just wants something better, but he's looking for it in the wrong way. He wants to change his position, but rather than changing position, it's sort of like a song is like, if you want to be somebody else, change your mind. It's like you don't need to be somebody else. Maybe think differently about what you're about to do. And so while he's trying to change his position to have his better afterlife, like it's ever going to get better, it's already hell. And supposedly when you're in hell, there's no getting out. That's the end all be all. That's it. So he feels like he's stuck. So his only way of getting deeper and getting farther ahead is to leave his humanity as far behind as he can. And so just kind of cut it off, He literally, it's pretty much backstory, but the reason why they call him Heartless Charles is because he literally decided to pull out his heart and crush it and put it somewhere where it can't grow back. In hell, and in this version of hell that I've written, I set it up to where at night it gets freezing cold, and what the cold does is it actually heals you. So theoretically, with that, Heartless Charles's heart could grow back every single night, but because he knows that, he decides to replace his heart with a piece of coal. So it tricks the cold into thinking that he's already what he should be, and everyone knows he's walking around with a black piece of coal for his heart. And I think sometimes when people really let themselves go, they really let themselves go to a point where they're in the darkest possible place ever, and you can't say anything to them. They might find it patronizing or something. They're just in the worst place possible. Like someone who's really angry. You can imagine like a really angry person, and some person might say, "Calm down," and like you already, the last thing you need to tell them is to calm down, and then they just go off, and you just this is really bad. But there's also gambling, where we just let ourselves go into these places and we just lose our humanity. That's where Charles is. And I think, I can't remember who said about, I think it was in a movie somewhere where, like person, I can't remember exactly what they said, but it's like they're just one bad day away from severe prison time or something, Can't remember exactly what that is. That's just off the cusp thought there. But Charles, he relates to me in the sense where to me, he's sort of like a dear friend that I lost down the road. I've had many friends who just went through the counterculture road, where they're going to be a rock star one day, or they're going to have all this wealth one day, and they just took the road where the drugs were, where alcohol was, where crazy stuff was happening, where they felt like life was at its fullest, partying, all that. And some people just never seem to leave that lifestyle. And it becomes like a constant daily thing of selfishness, where there's still humanity in there, but in Charles, it's just not there. He's completely given in, and hopefully that's not anyone you know. And if so, I'll be praying for them, because we all need a little bit of help, even if it's from afar. But all my characters have a little bit of me in them. They have to because they're coming from my head.
I like it. I like this. So Bryan, there's so much that you've unpacked about the book already for us, and I think that we're going to get a better experience just hearing your voice and understanding a little bit of behind the story, because it's just going to open the world up to us to hear and see things. Now we can anticipate, without knowing the end of the story, we can anticipate a little bit of the characters that we're going to come across. I have one question I want to ask you here at the end as we close off. But before I do that, as far as people connecting with you and where you would like to send people on social media, your website, however you'd like us to communicate with you, what is the best way for us to get in touch with you?
I do have a website. It's BryanTimothyMitchell.com. That's Bryan with a Y. I send out a weekly newsletter, and anyone can subscribe on that website to it. I give out a free prequel story called No Place Like Home that kind of sets off the Infernal Fall universe. I'm on Facebook a good bit. I have a author's page there where I can be followed and contacted. Also Instagram. I don't do so much on Instagram, but I'm always checking it out, and I do put up images there every now and then. Of course, if you use Amazon, I can be followed on Amazon, and they'll let you know whenever something's new is coming out from me. BookBub is another one. A few people are following me there. Twitter as well. I can be found. I'm little bit of me everywhere. But yeah, Amazon is a cool one. I have 4 different formats. I got ebook, softcover, hardcover, and audiobook. So those are all on Amazon and other online retailers as well.
Great. Before I ask my last question, your audiobook, did you voice the audiobook or did you have somebody do that for you?
It was James L. Rubart. He's author of Rooms and other great tales. He does a wonderful job for Infernal Fall. We haven't there's a sequel to Infernal Fall called Almost Paradise that just came out, and we're planning on working on the audiobook for that early next year.
Okay. All right. So my last question for you as we close off, if you had the opportunity, if I got out of this chair and Daniel, your main character, came in and sat down with you here and you had the chance to ask him a question, what's something that you don't know about Daniel that you'd like to ask if he was sitting here with you and this is your podcast and Daniel's sitting here? What question would you ask your main character that you would really like to know the answer to it? The first question that comes to mind is a spoiler. So I can't ask that one. No, don't do that. Okay.
I'll ask him, what did he decide to major in college? Because he was in his second semester of college, and he hadn't decided on what he was going to do yet. He never told me while writing these books, because it takes place in a number of days. He hadn't decided what he wanted to do when he gets out of college.
Do you have any guess about what that would have been?
I think he wanted to be a physical trainer, actually. But
interesting.
I just, because he knows how to be fit. It just seems like that's where he may go. And Christine, she was planning on being a nurse. And it just seems like those two would have worked their way in that direction through some way of fitness and health. So that's what I want to say he did. But this whole track through the Inferno and the things he's experienced, that could change a life and turn him in a new direction. So I'm not exactly sure what he would do. That's something he'll have to tell me one day.
Maybe there's a book there somewhere. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. I love it, Bryan. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on. I love talking to authors. The creativity that you have to see story, create a world for us as readers. It's exciting to be able to hear and interact with you and hear your voice and just get a little insight behind your writing. So thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, David. I appreciate it too.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information's in the show notes. Please head over there and make sure you check out the website. I was on it today. It's beautiful. And make sure you reach out to Bryan. Let him know that you're reading the books. And when you buy the books, wherever you buy, online, in person, please leave a review of the books. It means a lot to the authors that are writing, and it lets others know how amazing their books are. So please do that every time you read a book. Bryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for checking out the latest episode of Living the Next Chapter. I'm so happy to bring on these amazing authors and to share their stories, but I do have to confess I have a problem. And people who know me best would say, Dave, you have more than one problem. My problem is I have more episodes than I can release to you through my audio host, but I have a solution for you. Oh, yes. Head over to our YouTube channel. Subscribe today to our YouTube channel, and you can get the most recent episode. I'm posting this episode today that I recorded today, and you can get it now on YouTube. Jump the line, move right past that big burly guy at the door. You can get right in and get the most recent episode of Living the Next Chapter on our YouTube channel. Make sure you go there. LivingTheNextChapter.com has all the information. And again, I want to thank you for making this podcast such a great joy to create. Catch you on the next one.